Humans of St. Louis, a new book, stories of real people. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. We have a new book that we want to talk about. It's Humans of St. Louis. Lindy Drew is the co-author. Lindy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's so great for you to be here. Humans of St. Louis. The people of St. Louis, one photo and story at a time. I want to mention that you co-authored this with Dessa Somerside, who wasn't able to join us today, but we wanted to give her a shout out. This really didn't begin as a book, though, did it?
No, it started off as a social media site. So even before that, some friends and I wanted to get together and hit the streets with our camera and a question. And we just randomly went out, started to meet people. And from there, we shared the story on our Humans of St. Louis site, modeled after Humans of New York. And then it just started to gain more of a following.
And the social media site is ongoing. Right?
Yeah, it is. So you can find it mostly on Facebook and Instagram right now.
Uh-huh. And where did the idea come from? And when you go out, what are you going to ask people about? I mean,
yeah, I'd never heard about the Humans of movement before I had met this friend of mine from school.
They did it in New York, right?
They did it in New York, and now there's hundreds all over the world. There's schools that do it. There's groups that do it. So we thought, why don't we just start one? There's not one here in St. Louis. So we hit the streets, and it was super awkward the first couple times, talking to strangers, not knowing our comfort level and how to approach them and how to explain the project. And then eventually we got a little bit more comfortable with it, and so did our subject.
And you're not really sure what you're going to talk about when you first speak with them, is that right?
Typically, I don't choose a theme that we're going to speak about. So it's really open-ended, and from there, the people that I talk to are choosing what we end up talking about.
Okay. We're going to share some videos with our audience during this program. So these are videos of people that are in the book, which recently came out. I guess it was at the end of the year, right? And so these are the videos that would have been on your website, correct?
Actually, no, we've never shown video before. It's really still imagery because the craft that I practice is documentary photography and portraiture. So really what you see on the website is going to be pictures and then a blurb that we've transcribed from audio from the 30 minutes or 1 hour that I spent with somebody. But what we decided to do with the book coming out is to kind of push the work to a different level. And since we have all this audio just kind of sitting on the hard drive, we pulled some of it this time. So you'll see samples in the book that we're going to see in the audio, and we decided to overplay it on someone's photo so you could actually hear what the intonation is like when they interview and what the background noise could be like when we interview.
Okay, I want to share this first one. And this is maybe you want to set something up ahead of time. This is a gentleman, he's standing next to a truck full of bicycles.
Yeah, this is Amos. Amos has this truck with a big XO sign painted on it. And it was always something that I saw on the way to school when I was living up in Pagedale and heading to school at WashU. And one day he was there, the back of the truck was open. I came over to say hi, introduce myself, and he launched right into his story.
Let's take a listen.
I started off with 20 bikes. I fixed them all in my basement, brought them up here to the hill. As soon as I put the bikes out, the kids over there, all of them came, stood in a line. The mothers, the grandmothers, came right behind them with bags of change, dollar bills. I give them bikes on certain kids' bikes on the grades. And if everything's correct with me and the grades go up, oh, pick a bike off the lot.
No way.
Yes way.
What, do they come here with their report cards?
They come bring me their progress reports. If you had a D, you bring it up to a B. Whoa. All the bikes will be out on the hill. You know, I tell the kid, pick it. Do it all the time. Been rolling ever since. We just love our kids on this lot.
So, Lindy, when you find somebody like this on the street and you approach them and you start talking to them, maybe you don't have a time limit. Do you just talk to them as long as you want to, or is it usually 2 minutes, or you're there half an hour with them, or how does that work?
I don't have a time limit. And so if it takes 2 minutes to pull out this gem of an interview with like a beginning, a chunk in the middle, and like a take-home message, then that's great. But sometimes I'll spend up to an hour or an hour and a half with people talking to them.
Because I guess you're not sure exactly what you're looking for when you start, right?
Exactly, and that's kind of the appeal. I like that I'm going out for the day with my camera and I don't know what the conversation is going to lead to, but I've known after posting thousands of stories on the site and meeting all these folks and now like doing the book publication, people have things to talk about. And sometimes they're super open to a stranger even coming up to ask, how are you? I have a question, can we chat? Before you know it, you're talking about personal issues that they're going through, things about work or their family, or things that are just happening in our city. And it's a chance to have a conversation with a stranger and get to know them.
And it could be anybody, right? It could be a homeless person. It could be a college student. It could be a lawyer or the lady that works at the factory. You don't know till you start it, right?
It could be anyone. And, you know, we think about how we share the stories on the site. So we're not including, you know, all of one identity back to back every day for a week. We really try to mix it up. But when I meet people on the street, what I'm looking for is that someone has time to talk. So if they're on their phone, they're scrolling, they're looking down, when I pass by them, I most likely won't approach them. If they're sitting on their stoop and they're chatting with someone else or, you know, looking after their kids, but kind of looking like they're deep in thought, then I might stroll by and say, hey, do you have a moment? This is my name. This is my project. Do you mind having a conversation for a second?
I know this was a long project for you. It took years to put together. Let's look at we have some images of, I think, things that happened along the way.
Yeah.
So let's take a couple images here and you can tell us what's happening.
So this is our designers, Audra and Becca, who are from the Sam Fox School, and they decided to work on the project together. They had both taught classes. They're always talking about their students' work together, and they wanted to have a project to work on. So this is early in the project when they were trying to wrap their head around all the photo stories we wanted to include and think about how they were going to come together in print on a page. Because with the project, you're scrolling so much. When you see it once a day, we share a story. It's so different to then put those onto paper and to look at a full spread and what happens when you turn the page and how that affects the reading of it. We were looking at color, we were looking at typography, and we're looking at the best way to translate this like massive chunk of information into print.
Let's look at one more.
Yeah, so here's an example where they were kind of pitching us the color structure that they wanted to work with. Because again, we were starting from scratch, not really knowing my fortes in photography. So with the design aspect, they looked at the photographs and they realized a lot of our pictures have deep reds and deep blues in them. And then they started to pull that back into St. Louis and what that means. We looked at the flag and the color. We thought about how the red represents Brick City and the blue represents the confluences and all these riverways that kind of meet right here. And that's how we came up with the colors that we then used on the cover, in the front and back, and then in the beginning folds of the section before you actually dive into the hundreds of stories that we tell.
Let's look at another video and set it up for me. This is a lady by the name of Alice Mitchell. Who is she?
Alice Mitchell was a stranger before I met her this day. And actually, I went out to Forest Park to interview, and I was over by the Jewel Box, and I started talking to a gentleman that she was hanging out with. And she strolled on over and asked, you know, what are y'all doing? And I told her I'm a storyteller. And right then she said, I have a story for you. And she just also began to share right there.
Let's take a listen.
I said, well, you can't put Henry on a ventilator unless you talk to him. And he was sweating and he was breathing and he pointed to me. And he says, you mean you want your wife to make the decision? And then that's when I realized what till death do us part meant. Because if I'd known when I got married to him that I was going to have to decide what his last living, speaking moment was going to be and make that decision, I don't know if I would have had the courage to get married. So he says, Alice, what is your decision? And I looked at him and I said, Henry, you've got to go on the ventilator. And he bowed his head and I walked over to him and I kissed him on his forehead and I said, I love you. I'll see you when you get off the ventilator. And he never got off. And that was it. That was it.
Alice.
That was the last heartbeat between us.
So strong, Alice.
Yeah, so
So you can tell when someone's telling you their story, how much it means to them, how
Who is she
vulnerable
talking
they're
about
being.
exactly?
She's talking about her husband. Yeah, and so he had to go on a ventilator.
How did
and
you get on that topic?
That's the thing, we didn't. It was me with my camera, and sometimes people just have this openness to say, what are you out here doing? Are you making art? What's your art? Okay, well, if you want to have a conversation, let's have one. So I didn't ask anything about her husband, but clearly in that moment, it was on her mind, it was on her heart, and she just started to share. And even like when someone's finishing her story or their story, you could tell this moment where they're not quite done. So as she kept talking, she said this beautiful gem of a sentiment. That was the last heartbeat between us. And so that became that last line of the story that we shared.
Seems like sometimes it might be hard to end the conversation.
Yeah, sometimes it is. But that's the fun part too. I mean, I've now become friends with some of the people I've interviewed. We follow each other, we support each other in the community. It's been really beautiful to see folks who have let me into their world over social media. Like, for example, if there's mothers that have lost their children due to gun violence and the story I tell about them that day becomes about that, I'm actually learning more and more about this individual that's not here anymore through befriending the folks who are talking about their sons or daughters.
After you've done something like this, what do you think? Does it make you realize how different people are or how similar they are?
Kind of both. You know, like we put together a compilation like this. We were looking at themes that have happened throughout the history of Humans of St. Louis. And there's a lot of them when it comes to how people arrived to St. Louis, what they think about St. Louis, how they're treated in St. Louis, how they've wronged others but want to make a right. And you recognize that this is just a common theme about humanity and specifically here. But then you also realize how different people are too. So the point of the book is to open it up at any page or read it from cover to cover and say, like, I identify with that. That was captured. That's a part of my story. Or I have no idea about what that person's talking about, but I'm open to learning and sharing.
And it's interesting that you're the one doing this about St. Louis because you didn't live in St. Louis until you came to go to school here at college.
Yeah, exactly. So I moved here for school. My co-author and friend for the project, Dessa, had moved here years ago. We met years ago in Chile doing some volunteer work. She came to school here along with many others from that program, and I started to pay attention to what is the institution that you went to, what are you learning, you know, how could that help me in my career? And then I came as well.
That's Dessa Somerside, your co-author. We just
Exactly.
give her a little credit. We need to take a break,
Yeah.
Lindy, and we'll come back with more Humans of St. Louis after this.
Selfie. Nailed it.
What I love about St. Louis is the 79 unique neighborhoods nestled into 108 city parks, including Forest Park, which is actually larger than Central Park in New York, and of course, the beautiful Tower Grove Park where I'm at now. Oh, the St. Louis Blues. We've got the St. Louis Surge, two-time WBCBL champions. We've got Harris Stowe, WashU, St. Louis University, and of course, the 11-time World Series champion, St. Louis Cardinals. So come experience St. Louis.
Visitors and residents love the St. Louis Zoo because it's free. There's a train, a carousel, opportunities to make new friends, and plenty of fun learning experiences with the animals 363 days a year. So come and experience St. Louis.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. Lindy Drew is our guest today. She's the co-author of Humans of St. Louis, which is a book that recently came out. The result of a long project of interviewing strangers on the street and putting it all together and helping people tell their stories in a short format, right?
Exactly.
Why don't we just jump in and look at this next video before we go any further? And this is a lady, tell me about her. She wrote a letter about St. Louis.
Yeah, this is Chris Calicut, and I met her through a collaboration. A lot of the times companies reach out to us and say, how do you do what you do? What's your style like? Are you able to share that with us to tell stories about these specific things? So United Way reached out and they wanted to share some stories about the people who are active in giving, donating, connected. And I met Chris. We met up at a YMCA. We started chatting. And what really moved me about her story is like, I didn't expect to be teary that day, or I didn't expect for her to cry during the interview that day. And then all of a sudden, she pulled this out about her connection to St. Louis. And as someone who is not from here, but is now from here, I found what she said to be really heartfelt.
Let's listen to what she has to say.
I wrote a letter to the mayor, and I never mailed it, and I wrote it just for myself. I wrote a letter to St. Louis. I said, "Dear St. Louis," and I explained to St. Louis why I was in love with it and why I'm upset with it and what I want to see change to it. I talked about the amazing things about it, and then I talked about how it breaks my heart and all these different things. I don't want to be known as the abandoned city. I want to be known as the city that came together with its diverse background and learned to survive and thrive and open their arms to each other and grew and became this amazing place.
That one really gets to me. It kind of like it makes me think what we hear a lot about on the news today when they talk about the crime in St. Louis, and that's on everybody's mind right now. And that kind of hit a nerve.
Yeah, I mean, taking in all parts of St. Louis, we know the stories told about our city. We know the stories we hear about our city. And we also know all this life that's happening here. Chris lives here, I live here, you live here, right? And we're involved in the things that we're involved in. And so the parts that she says, you know, that she'd love to see brighter and get fixed, it's all true. And also there is a lot of shine that's already a part of St. Louis. Mm-hmm. So when I'm going out to meet people, the moment that I do, you know, they'll talk about these transgressions that they have committed. They'll talk about these things that they've done that they're not proud of. I'm not meeting them in the moment when they're doing it, but typically I'm meeting them after, and they want to debrief or like process it or share what they've learned. And I find that really interesting because then I go ahead and meet this person who had their life situations that lined up the way they did to get them to where they were, make the decisions they had to make or did make. And then it's like, but let's just talk about it. How did you get there? And what would you have done differently? Or what do you need right now? Or how can we help you if we crowdsource this, like, you know, group of people that can come together to offer ideas for support or tag organizations that can come in to help out too.
Let's take a look at another image behind the scenes.
So this is me and my co-author and best friend, Dessa Somerside. We have a partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters where we told some stories for them. And in return, they loaned us a space in their basement over in Grand Center to be able to accept all the books when the shipment came in. So for the first run, we sold 3,250 copies, and they came on 14 pallets. But where were we going to put them? Because we self-published the whole thing, which meant fundraising for ourselves, putting the book together, and then figuring out how distribution was going to look.
But they flew off the shelves fast.
They flew off the shelves, yeah. They were gone in 3 weeks. And so this is us the first couple days that they arrived, and we thought we'd sign a couple hundred or so.
And you've got more in the process, right?
Yes. So recently we put in for our second print run, and now we're going to be accepting 5,000 copies that should be here close to summer.
Wow. This next video we have some youngsters. I don't know if they're siblings or what they are. Who are they?
Let's see who they are.
This is the video.
Let's see.
And that should come up any second. Humans of St. Louis is the book. There we go.
So these kids are some brothers and sisters, some neighbors. They're playing outside where I was that day. I saw their parents. I asked, you know, is it okay if I interview your kiddos?
They didn't say, leave my kids alone?
No, they were like, okay, let's see what they have to say. And, you know, kids say the darndest things. So I thought we'd be talking about school or crushes or what they're eating or how they're spending, their summer. And instead, they hit me with this one.
Can we ask you an interview? Can we interview you?
Totally, go for it.
No,
It's
because
all right.
what's your favorite color? How was it in college? Do you ever have to be on time? What if you're not on time?
What if you 1 minute late?
What if you fake like you're sick and you want to skip something like history? It's like a job for you. Is this like your job or like
one job? You only have one job?
Or do you have any other career that you would like to get? I wish we could go around and interview with you. We probably could go with you, but I don't think we go too far. We couldn't go too far. Like we could go down the street, around the corner, that way, that curve.
You guys are so cool. So these kids completely flipped the script and just started questioning me. And the best part was, is this like a job for you? Is there any other career you want to get to? Stole my heart.
Did you answer all their questions?
In the end, I don't think they even cared. They didn't even care. It was just one after another, rapid fire.
Before we go any further, I want people to take a look at the shirt. Did you wear this on purpose today?
Yeah, I closed my book to be here. I found this at the Goodwill store for like a few dollars. And I thought,
it was
this
made
is
for
perfect right now. This is perfect for today.
We have another video. This is a guy, I guess is he an artist? He's got some outside art or something.
I'll have to see the picture that you're
All
going
right,
to show
this
first.
is a video.
Surprise me.
This is a video coming. I'm sure you'll recognize it as soon as we do.
Yes.
I called it art. Maybe maybe that's not art.
It's totally art, yeah.
Okay.
So this is Louis Greenberg, who unfortunately is not with us anymore. I was giving a presentation at Webster University. Sometimes folks call me in to talk about the process of what it's like to hostel humans of St. Louis or to talk to people on the street, photograph and all of that. And after the presentation, a student walked up to me and he said, have you ever seen the house in Baldwin that is a memorial to the Holocaust? You can't miss it. I was like, no, and I'm not always out there photographing, but I'll go there. Anywhere in the region is, fair game. So on my Google Maps, he roughly found where it was located. And I had some time one day, drove out 30 minutes, showed up to the neighborhood. Everything looked typical, like suburbia. And I thought I'd just drive around. I came this far. As soon as I took another right, I saw Louis's house. And a neighbor was outside walking. And I said, do you know who lives inside? I'd like to interview them and see if they're available. He said, if you can find the front door, knock on it.
And you did.
And I found the back door. You couldn't get to the front, but there was room enough. If you went around the side, I could tell that a person can get back there. So I knocked on his door.
Let's listen to what he has to say.
I built this home brand new in 1970, and I did this. Every single,
This is your art.
Every single stone that you see, and there's stones under this too. This is like for winter time.
This is the path I got to your back door.
Hey, well, you were smart. You followed it. It's easy. There's arrows, there's everything.
What do you
I
think?
think what keeps me alive is my compassion for people that aren't as lucky as I have been through the 75 years of my life. I've been so lucky, and now I can feel it and see it. It's running out. I'm getting sick. I got all kinds of problems, and I was always so healthy and strong. I rode my bike, I raced. My whole life is dedicated that you and me and everybody on the whole planet, that we get along with each other.
So the interesting part about Louis's story is, and I don't knock on people's doors typically, this was an extenuating circumstance. I'm usually on the streets, just at parks and stuff like that. But the interesting thing about Louis's story is that when I shared it the next day, his son wrote me a private email on the Humans of St. Louis page. Hello, I'm Louis's son. If you'd like the rest of the story, please reach out. So we started typing, and he said, everything you included about my dad, it's all true, but I didn't know he had a heart condition and that he needs surgery. Is that true? And I said, that is what he told me.
And he learned that from the video.
From the video. So he lives in Texas. Some friends told him, your dad has been profiled on the site. You might want to reach out. He reaches out to me. So I let him know, you should really give your dad a call. It's been a while. Next thing I know, Louis is giving me a call, and he's like, Lindy, this is a mitzvah. This is a miracle. I've heard from my son, and we're back in touch.
Oh, my
It's really beautiful. So part of making the Humans of St. Louis book is that we chose stories where we could pull back the curtain and let the viewers see what's also happening that we don't always share. And that's this very human connection where people reach out to us or the subjects are contacted in a very interesting way. So when you read Lewis's story, you flip the page and then you hear his son's story.
Wow. Lindy, we've only got a couple of minutes left. So how many profiles are in the book?
So we share 500 people in the book over 400 stories. There's 544 pages in the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you sold that first order all at once. You've got more coming. What's the best way for people to get a copy?
Yeah, so the best way to get a copy is on our website at humansofstl.org. You can pre-order there. If you're interested in ordering in bulk as like a company or an institution and you want to give it away as a gift or something like that, then reach out to us independently at humansofstl@gmail.com, and we'll make sure to like reserve those orders for you. And then also, if you know of bookstores or stores in the area that you'd love to see carry the book, we have about 20 that carried it last time, and they're on board for next time. But if there's more, we're welcome to. We just need them to reach out to us.
I'm just guessing that you hear from people that have the book, and I bet it's one that they start to read 1 or 2 profiles, and then it's 2 or 3 more, and then 5 or 6 more, and they don't stop.
Yeah, folks have told me I was on my way to bed, and then I started reading, and then I was up way too late, and then I read the whole book.
Well, one point I want to make before we're out of time here is that I know you and Dessa put this together, but it had to have been a group effort too.
Exactly. So really the group came together because we decided to self-publish. So that meant that we had not even a dime in the bank to start the project when we did. So we decided to get a group together and start with a Kickstarter, and the community came through. There's a contributions page on the back. Most people are listed if they gave at a certain level, companies too. Without their support at the beginning, we couldn't have had a project like this. From there, we went off and asked other companies and organizations, would you buy pre-ordered books in bulk? Would you take 100 or 150? And they were, or they'd hire us for storytelling in exchange for helping out. So really without this initial infusion from the community, this book wouldn't have looked like this, or may not have been here.
Lindy, I guess it's going to keep, the project's just ongoing, right?
Yeah, we're going to continue. There's so many more people to share.
Well, we're out of time, but I certainly really appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's Humans of St. Louis, the people of St. Louis, one photo and story at a time. Lindy Drew and Dessa Somerside put the whole thing together. That's about 1,000 other people. But thank you so much, and continued success, and you're a great storyteller.
Oh, thank you so much. You as well.
I'm Steve Potter. Thanks for being a part of City Quarter, and I hope you'll join us next time. Bye.